Okay, so let's get started. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Habit Design series in PBNSG, the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group. I'm I'm so glad that you guys are here. Usually, we hold this session every second Tuesday of the month. So for those of you who are meeting me for the very first time, I'm Dr. Shobha Raipuri. I'm a both certified lifestyle medicine doctor and also co-founder of Gift of Health, where we actually help people struggling with chronic diseases to break free from those diseases, reduce their dependency on medications, and have more energy. So nowadays, like what we see is when we think of chronic diseases, what you would notice is these are nothing but lifestyle diseases. The current habits that we have, for our eating patterns or for our movement. So there are so many things, or the choices that we make for the lifestyle causes a lot of chronic conditions that we see nowadays. And if you are looking to prevent or reverse any chronic diseases, knowing like how to make the habit change is actually going to give you the skill power. So it's not about the willpower, but when you enhance your skill power, you don't have to use the willpower to make the lifestyle change. So that's our goal here. So with that, let us get started. So I just want to make sure that you guys are able to hear me. So okay, so in the stream, okay, okay,
Everything looks good, Dr. Shobha.
yeah, but I still see the gallery view. Um,
If you hit full screen,
So I am, so I am in full screen. Okay, there we go. Yep. Okay, then. So, okay. During the last session, we covered a few things about designing a habit. And when it comes to designing a habit, there are 5 key things when it comes to designing a habit. In the realm of habit design, like we can shape our behavior, and there are 5 things that are required to shape up behavior. So just to recap from the previous session, and by the way, if you have not watched the previous session, I highly encourage that you watch that previous session in terms of how you can shape a behavior. So let me okay, so there we go. So in terms of shaping the behavior, there are 5 things that are required to shape a behavior. So one is it has to be a physical action you want to do. So, for example, if you're saying to yourself, I want to quit smoking, it's not a physical action. Or if you want to say to yourself, like, I want to quit taking dairy or I want to quit meat. So, it's not a physical action. So, when it comes to behavior shaping, it has to be a physical action. So, instead of saying that I'm going to quit smoking, if you are going to say, I'm going to chew nicotine gum, so that is an example of a physical action you want to do. The second thing is it should pass the snapshot test. And I will explain this in a second because I know in the last class I didn't get much time to explain this passing the snapshot test. I will go a little bit in detail today. And the other thing is your behavior has to be 5 increments or less. So instead of saying, okay, I'm going to do 100 push ups, but if you say to yourself, so let's say if you have not done any exercise, so instead of saying to yourself, I'm going to do 30 minutes of gym or I'm going to do 30 minutes of exercise, what you say to yourself, like you are just choosing in the increments of 5 or less. So you say to yourself, I'm going to do 3 push ups, 3 sit ups, or 3 wall sits. So that's how you choose. And the other thing, it's not defined by time. So as I said, it's like you're not saying to yourself, I'm going to do 30 minutes, 1 hour. Instead of that, we are not tracking time here, because that itself becomes another behavior change. And you are defining the behavior in 5 words or less. So when we are describing an action, so like we can say, be in bed by 11 p.m., or like drink 2 cups of water, or walk 1 block. So we are defining the behavior in 5 words or less. So now coming to the snapshot test. So here, what do you mean by snapshot test? Is like taking a mental photo at a random time and asking, if I walked in right now, would I see the person doing what they said they wanted to do, or something that leads to it? So this concept is used to check if the habit or behavior is integrated into daily life in a visible or real world way. So what I mean by this is, so let's say if you said to yourself, I'm going to exercise. So what that snapshot test means is, if you're going to exercise, number one, are you in your workout clothes? Are you stretching now, or are you walking, or are you at the gym, or are you putting your running shoes? So like, these are all the actions that actually lead to further action of doing the exercise. So when we say passing the snapshot test, means when we look at, so are they putting on running shoes on mid work, or are they in mid workout? Failing the snapshot test means, are they still in bed or scrolling their phone? So when they're doing that action, it necessarily wouldn't lead to exercise. Or for example, let's say if your goal is to do daily meditation at night. So the snapshot test is, so at 9 p.m., are they in the quiet space? Are they with their cushion or app open? Or are they preparing to meditate? So the passing test is, they're sitting quietly, phone is in the do not disturb mode, whereas the failing test is, they're watching TV or in conversation with no meditation setup visible. So like, is this clear? Like, any questions here when it comes to having the snapshot test? So basically in this snapshot test, it ensures that the behavior is observable and measurable. The person has moved from intention to action and is embedded into the person's environment and routines. So this is what we are referring to the snapshot test. I'm going to take the example what I used in the last class. I know Jillian, in the last class, we shaped a behavior. And at that time, Jillian's goal was to write a blog post. So I'm just using that example so that it becomes clear. So so what do we mean by the snapshot test? So let's say if the goal was to write a blog every week. So by midweek, or let's say by Wednesday, is there a draft started or an outline in progress? Or simply, like what we are saying is, has the topic been selected? Has the outline been started? Is the draft in progress? Is the editing done? Has the final review been done? Has the blog been published? So there are almost 7 steps if you notice. So by Monday, have they selected the topic? By Tuesday, have they started the outline? By Wednesday, is the draft in progress? By Thursday, is the editing or graphics have been added? By Saturday, is the final review done? And by Sunday, has the blog been set up for publishing? So here, let's say if on Monday, I see that no topic has been selected, no outline started, or no draft is in progress, how likely do you think it would pass the snapshot test. So are you guys getting this? So in the snapshot test, at a particular time, that particular action has to
I'm
be.
listening to a PBNSG thing.
I'm sorry? Hi, Anne.
Hello, sorry, I'll mute.
Okay.
Okay, now?
Okay. So so here, so that's what we refer to the snapshot test. So in the last class, we also talked about what are the 5 steps to a habit design. So here you're picking a setup, you're picking an anchor, trigger, habit, reinforcer. So this is the research done by Kim and his colleagues, Michael Kim and his colleagues, where they have established 5 steps to a habit design. So these are the 5 steps that are needed. And in the last class, I gave an example of like how to choose an anchor and how you can shape an existing or how you can shape the new habit. For example, if let's say if you want to develop a habit of drinking more water, so the new habit is I will just drink 1 cup of water. And now the question is, where are you going to insert that behavior? So here you have to set up an already existing behavior or already existing habit. In this case, we said after I start my coffee machine. So for example, if I have the habit of drinking coffee every day, so what I'm going to do is as soon as I start my coffee machine, I'll pour the water into my mug and I will drink 1 cup of water before filling my coffee machine. So like you could see that when that habit is attached to the existing anchor, it is so easy for that behavior to be established. The other part is, I know like I actually went over quite in detail in the last session. I'm just refreshing the concepts that have been covered in the last class. So for more details, you can definitely watch the previous session on habit design. And the other 2 parts to habit design is the setup and reinforcer. And today, like I actually want to talk more in detail about setting up or when it comes to doing a behavior. And when it comes to doing a behavior, so let me just, okay, let me, okay. So today I actually want to cover a very interesting topic. So the thing is, the basic struggle that most of us have today is that we should be doing some things like eating healthy, exercising, going to bed on time, but our brain wants to do something else. It wants to do dopaminergic things like, let me watch 1 more episode in the series before I go to bed, even though it's time for bed. Let me just check my messages on the phone and just respond to these messages before I go to bed. Let me just do 1 more thing before I go to bed. Or let me eat the chocolate cake instead of fruit for nighttime snacking. And the problem is that we struggle to control this part of our brain. How many of you have actually experienced this? Because we think like we are in control, right? So the problem is that we think we can control this part of the brain, but we cannot control this part of the brain. Why? Because actually it is this part of your brain that actually controls you. So in the current digital age, you do not control dopamine. Dopamine controls you. So dopamine is nothing but a key neurotransmitter which is involved in motivation and pleasure and has the control over our behavior. So when it comes to setting a habit or behavior, we should be very well aware that actually dopamine controls our behavior. So here what you would find is, so this is a picture of the brain. And like what you are seeing here is nucleus accumbens, and this is the part that actually has dopamine. And this is the dopamine circuits, what you are seeing here. So I will just explain this part in detail so that you understand. So here, when you look at different parts of the brain, so you have your prefrontal cortex. So this prefrontal cortex is part of our frontal lobes, and this is what generates things like willpower. When we do things like meditate, the frontal lobes are basically what control the other parts of our brain. So this is like, you can call this as a CEO of the brain. So it decides, it controls the other part of the brain. So let's say if you're really feeling emotional, have you guys experience this? So let's say whenever you feel emotional, there is a little voice in your brain saying that, get it together, buddy, or get it together, girl. Let's calm down. So that is your prefrontal cortex asking you to focus. Or let's say if you want to study, so your brain is like, instead of getting distracted, let's focus. So this is all done by the frontal lobes. The other thing that prefrontal cortex does is generates value assessment. So I will come to it in a second. So anytime you're thinking about doing an action, your brain has some idea of what the action is worth. The deep, and then, so this is your prefrontal cortex, and this area is your deep limbic system. So the deep limbic system is crucial for managing anxiety, depression, setting emotional tone, creating bonding. The problem is that, so this is like in the previous picture, you guys were able to see where the nucleus accumbens is located. So the nucleus accumbens is the part which stores dopamine. Okay, so here, the nucleus accumbens is the part that generates motivation. And once it generates motivation, that's what we want to do. So that is what creates our want. Now, the problem is because we have created a want, then it is very hard to control it. And our whole life is a struggle about wanting to want different things. So here, what we are doing, instead of, since we can't create the wants that we want, since you don't get to pick what your desires are, instead, what we are going to do is we are going to utilize other parts of the brain. We are going to utilize the other parts of the brain to weaken the nucleus accumbens. So basically what we are going to do, we are going to use the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, because this, or let me put it this way. So here, I know like here, it's not that like I want you to remember all the different parts of the brain, but just to simplify and make it easy. So you see the temporal lobe here. So it has amygdala. So this temporal lobe, it actually makes us vulnerable to dopamine. So you must deal with this negative emotion. So like if you want, or let me, maybe this picture might be clear. So here, so as you can see, there are different circuits in the things that actually control nucleus accumbens. So the prefrontal controls it. Then this is the area in the midbrain. So you can see a pathway running. So there is a communication going between these two areas of the brain. So basically, if you want to control this part of, which is the nucleus accumbens, you are actually utilizing this part, and other parts of the brain to actually control this circuitry. I hope this makes it simple. And so any questions here? So like, was this clear? Because since the dopamine, since we cannot control the dopamine, right? The dopamine controls us. But in order to control that dopamine circuit, if we know what are the inputs for that circuit, we could actually manipulate that. So is this making sense for you guys? Okay, good. So like so coming to different part of the brain. So here, like we can use, so what do we do when we have negative emotions? So have you guys noticed, especially when you feel, when you experience negative emotions, what do you guys want to do? You actually want to do more dopaminergic activity. You want to reach out for that chocolate cake, or you want to scroll your phone. Have you guys noticed when you are tired and have no energy for anything, what is the easiest thing for you to do? Even though you're tired, have you noticed it's just easy to pick up your phone? Even though you have no energy, why are you picking up? Because picking up the phone is a highly dopaminergic action. When you're facing the negative emotions, it's giving a signal to your brain saying that I need the dopamine now. Okay, so let us see in detail so that you understand this concept of like how actually you can control your dopamine. So basically, the prefrontal cortex is the part of our frontal lobes, and that is where we are generating the willpower. But what does the prefrontal cortex control? It controls our focus, forethought, judgment, impulse control, empathy, planning. So these are all the job of the prefrontal cortex. So basically, the prefrontal cortex manages focus, forethought, judgment, planning, empathy, and learning from mistakes. So how can you enhance your prefrontal cortex is the question. So people who practice structured goal setting, or people who exercise, or people whose diet has, if their diet has whole food, plant-based, low glycemic, and including more omega-3 fatty acids, and also like there are certain foods that boost dopamine. So like for example, green tea. When you're eating foods that boost dopamine, what you notice is that actually supports the free frontal cortex. And so I know I just covered this. So this structured goal setting and regular exercise are essential for maintaining brain health. And the other part of the yes, okay, yeah. So the other part of the brain is the limbic system. Okay, so this deep limbic system is actually crucial for managing anxiety, depression, setting emotional tone, and creating bonding. So again, like I don't want to overwhelm you with different parts of the brain, but like hippocampus is something that is present in the deep limbic system. So hippocampus is our memory circuit. Hippocampus has a strong influence on the nucleus accumbens. But there are some things that the hippocampus loves and some things that the hippocampus hates. So this is important to remember. So hippocampus values novelty. So if something is new for you, it will actually trigger a stronger motivational impulse. So let's take the case of exercise. And let's say if you're finding it hard to exercise. If you're trying to exercise, instead of scrolling your phone, your brain says, hey, you have tried exercising before. It doesn't work well. We don't really enjoy exercising. So let's end up scrolling up our phone. So if you want to start exercising, the key thing is you can actually use your hippocampus and add novelty to the mix. So if you try to different kind of exercise. So let's say if you say to yourself, okay, let's go to Pilates, or let's go to yoga, let's go to Tai Chi, let's work out with friends, or let's do some high intensity interval training, or let's join this workout group with buddies or with women or whatever. Or if you say to yourself, okay, let me have a buddy or a trainer who can set the accountability for me. So the more novelty you can add to the things you're trying to do something again, the more it will increase your motivation and trigger that sort of positive dopamine response. So here, I know, like I just briefly touched upon like what dopamine does, but to give you guys the clarity. So basically, what is happening is dopamine is present in nucleus accumbens. So let's say every night you go to bed, and when you get up in the morning, you have this fresh supply of dopamine that is stored in nucleus accumbens. And let's say you do a particular activity, then the nucleus accumbens releases dopamine. So when it releases dopamine, you feel that the activity is pleasurable. And when the activity is pleasurable, it actually motivates you to do more, right? Only when the activity is enjoyable and pleasurable, you feel like doing it more. So basically, what dopamine is doing is it's making something pleasurable. It's making something motivational for you to again go back and do that activity. So that's what dopamine does. So here, so that's why, have you noticed when you have that one bite of chocolate cake, what do you want to do? You want to go back and have another bite. When you have that bite of chip, what do you want to do? You want to go back and have another bite. And when you're scrolling your phone, when you watch one video, what do you want to do? You want to watch another one. And let's say when you're watching, binge watching series, you have watched one. If that is giving you pleasure, what do you want to do? You want to go watch next episode. So are you guys seeing this? So it actually, dopamine actually puts you in the trap of doing more. But here's the key. There is only a limited supply of dopamine. Okay, so every day, imagine, you can imagine this like a bank balance. So let's say you have a bank account, and every month a certain amount is deposited. And if you have spent that money, then you don't have much money left to spend. So similarly, if you have done one activity and the nucleus accumbens secretes that dopamine, then there is just little bit of dopamine left. For example, you get up in the morning, you try to exercise, then a little bit of dopamine is released. Or let's say you get up in the morning and scroll your phone, then the dopamine is released. So here's a very interesting fact that you guys will enjoy learning about it. When I scroll my phone, what happens? That activity actually gives me more dopamine versus when I exercise. Are you guys seeing the difference? So when I pick up my phone and scroll, that is releasing more dopamine. And so here, since I have limited supply of dopamine, and if that activity has depleted my dopamine levels, so I have with very low dopamine left. Just to give you an analogy, let's have you guys seen a lemon? And let's say if you cut the lemon into half, and have you noticed it's just a gentle squeeze in the beginning gives you more juice, whereas at the end, you have to really squeeze hard to get more juice. So same thing with dopamine. So let's say in the morning, if you do dopaminergic activities, it's like squeezing a full lemon and the juice is gone and you're left with very little bit of juice for the rest of the day. So that's why if you can use your prefrontal cortex to pick less dopaminergic activities in the morning so that you have more dopamine left to do the remaining activities for the day. It's just like allocating your money to different things. So if you're planning and saying to yourself, okay, a certain percentage goes to pay my rent, certain percentage goes to pay my food bill, certain percentage goes for the any emergency situation. So like if you are rationing that, how likely you are about to succeed versus when you don't plan, and let's say whatever comes in between. So you're saying, okay, let me buy this car, and you don't have any money left to do remaining activities, right? So it's the same thing with dopamine. So once you lose that dopamine, you have to really struggle hard, or you will have to really, you would have hard time motivating yourself to do things. Let me put this in another way so that it makes sense. So let's say you get up in the morning, and let me ask you if you guys have experienced this. You get up in the morning and you're still like uh, since you're just snoozing out of your sleep, you don't have, your energy levels are not at peak, so you're still feeling sluggish. So again here, since you're feeling sluggish, what does your brain want to do? It want to do dopaminergic activity. So you just try to go pick up your phone, but you say to yourself, oh, let me check the emails, or let me check what the weather is. But what happens? One thing after, like one scrolling after the other leads to other things. And before you know, like you will be surprised, like 1 or 2 hours have gone by scrolling the phone. Has anybody experienced this? Yes. And while doing that, a lot of your dopamine has been secreted. And then you feel that you don't have energy to exercise. Then you're like, okay, it's time for me to go to work. Let me get ready and go to work, or let me attend other things. So what is happening is there's not much dopamine. So how motivated you will be to exercise or meditate or do any journaling or do any morning routine when you pick up the phone, versus if you tell yourself as soon as you get up, instead of picking the phone, you tell yourself, let me do some meditation, let me do some journaling. So even though that meditation or journaling, you feel that it's not going to give you any pleasure, but have you guys noticed, after you have done the meditation or the journaling or exercise for that matter, you actually feel good after doing that? And why are you feeling good? Because the nucleus accumbens is full of dopamine. And even though that was not a dopaminergic activity, just the gentle squeeze released a lot of juice. Just that gentle squeeze released a lot of dopamine. That's why you're actually feeling good after that activity. So is this making sense, guys? I hope like I'm not making this too complicated. So here, like we are seeing like how we can use this dopamine to motivate our behavior. So as you can see, like dopamine controls us. We cannot control dopamine. So we are technically, what we are doing is we are using our prefrontal cortex to pick less dopaminergic actions in the morning. So for example, you can do this experiment. So all throughout the morning, so from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., you decide to scroll your social media. And from 2 p.m. onwards, you say to yourself, like, I'm just going to work on this report, or I'm just going to cook, or I'm going to exercise. How motivated you would be at 2 p.m. to do those activities, versus you get up in the morning and say to yourself, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to cook. So from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., these are the activities I'm going to do. And from 2 p.m., I can scroll my phone. So after 2 p.m., do you have energy to scroll your phone after you have finished your exercise, cooking, meditation? Are you guys seeing the difference? So if in the morning half, if you pick more dopaminergic activities, you don't have much juice left. Versus if you flip that, if you do less dopaminergic activities in the morning, you still have the juice left to do other pleasurable activities, dopaminergic activities. Okay, so any questions here? So like, is this making sense? Okay, so let's let's continue with our other parts of the brain. So here, so we talked about what the prefrontal cortex does. So it is like our CEO. Oops. Okay. So the prefrontal cortex is like our CEO, and when it comes to limbic system, it is the part of the brain that sets our emotional tone, mood, and which creates bonding, which creates memories. So here, okay, so here we also discussed about hippocampus, which is part of the deep limbic system. So we can actually utilize hippocampus lobe to add novelty. And whenever the deep limbic system is not in full function, for example, negative thoughts, low motivation, social isolation, and pain sensitivity are common issues associated with malfunctioning of deep limbic system. So when your prefrontal cortex is not functioning properly, so you're not able to set your goals, you don't have enough willpower. When your deep limbic system is not functioning, so you notice that you're experiencing a lot of negative thoughts, low motivation. So the other thing we saw in the previous picture is there is a connection between the nucleus accumbens and the amygdala. So these two parts of the brain talk to each other a lot. So amygdala and the limbic system is very important for dopamine vulnerability. So that's why you notice that the more negative emotions you are dealing with, the more vulnerable you are to dopaminergic signals. So the worse we feel, and let's say if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling anxious, you're more vulnerable to do dopaminergic activities. You're more vulnerable to sit in front of TV and just watch and do nothing. Because what we know is that dopamine basically shuts off negative emotions, and negative emotion induces cravings for dopamine. Because we feel bad when we have negative emotions, so technically, like what is happening is whenever that negative emotion is coming, the negative emotion in the deep limbic system is actually communicating to nucleus accumbens and saying, secrete more dopamine. So it is actually craving for more dopamine. But if we learn how to resolve our negative emotions and know how to process our emotions when we feel bad, that is the key where we can actually control the dopamine circuit. So as you could see, whenever that's why you would notice like people who are addicted actually tend to have a lot of negative emotions pent up. And as long as you have negative pent up emotions, you're more vulnerable to dopamine signals. So you must deal with these negative emotions. And it could be just doing simple things, just taking a walk in nature. You can go for a walk in an hour. Have you guys noticed, like when you take a walk in the nature, a lot of these negative emotions, they actually settle. And you will be amazed to notice that you will be 20% more resistant to the effects of dopaminergic activities. So instead of shutting yourself in the room and if you do things like taking a walk or exercising, then you feel that you are not craving for dopaminergic activities. So what are the things that we can do to help our deep limbic system? One is exercise. And the other thing is Affirmations are useful in turning negative thoughts into positive and realistic ones. And healing smells, such as essential oils, they can penetrate the blood-brain barrier and provide emotional and spiritual benefits. And also connecting with others, even when feeling low, is essential for emotional and social well-being. Have you noticed whenever you feel low, all you need to do is just call a friend, right? Call a friend, share, or all you need to do is just come to the PBNSG support group meeting. So even though like how low you feel, what you notice is the community connecting with others. That itself lets you process the emotions. So the other part of the brain is the temporal lobes. And again, it's associated with memory, mood, music. And the other one is called the anterior cingulate gyrus. Again, here I don't want to overwhelm you guys with different parts of the brain. Here, mostly this part of the brain is crucial for cognitive flexibility, shifting attention, and error detection. So this you can actually utilize. So people who have problems with this part of the brain, they get stuck. People experience obsessive compulsive disorders and addiction when this part of the brain is not working well. They are very rigid, inflexible, they hold grudges, and they find themselves having compulsion, addictions, argumentative, and they see so many mistakes. They see too many errors. And how you can help this anterior cingulate gyrus is by distracting yourself and engaging in exercise, or having a balanced diet rich in healthy carbs and omega-3s. Actually, even when if you boost your serotonin levels, it also supports this part of the brain. So technically, like what is happening is that there are different parts of the brain which control the nucleus accumbens circuitry. And the more dopamine we have, the easier it is to engage in something called sustained effort. So, and I just explained that concept. And let me. Okay. So do you guys have any questions from what we have covered so far? Okay, so let me just summarize what we have discussed so far. So here, okay, so when it comes to motivation, dopamine is the hormone that is associated with our behavior motivation. Now, can we control dopamine? No, but the dopamine controls us. Okay, so now how can we manage this dopamine? Because dopamine is the key to motivate us. One thing is people think that dopamine is bad. No, actually, dopamine is very, very essential. And they have done this study. So what they have done is they have done the studies in animals. Out of the brain rats, they have depleted dopamine out of brain rats and observed them for doing a behavior. So they put food in front of the rats, and they noticed the difference between dopamine depleted rats and rats that had dopamine. So what they noticed is the rats with dopamine, they were eager to eat the food, whereas the dopamine depleted rats, they were not even motivated to eat the food. So the key to remember is dopamine is essential. And the second key to remember is dopamine is limited. Every day you are getting that fresh supply of dopamine. The choice is yours, how you're going to use that supply of dopamine. Are you going to spend that dopamine in the dopaminergic activities in the morning half, or are you going to use your prefrontal cortex to plan what dopamine activities to do in the morning and how to delay the dopaminergic activities. Okay, so that is something under your control. So even though you do not have control like how dopamine can motivate you, but you certainly have the control of how much dopamine, like how to use that dopamine. So are you guys seeing this? So is this making sense? Okay, good. So to summarize, okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so to summarize what we have talked about, we are utilizing the different parts of the brain. For example, we use our amygdala to reduce negative emotions. We use the prefrontal cortex. So we use the prefrontal cortex for conscious value assessment. And we use the opioid system to add pain. So just let me give you an example of hippocampus or the deep limbic system. When you add novelty to task, you find difficult to motivate yourself. For example, try different exercise routine, try different study methods, try different work approaches, introduce new elements to make activities more engaging and interesting. So that's the way to uh, use your hippocampus to motivate for you to do hard things. The other thing is now, how do you use your prefrontal cortex? So in the prefrontal cortex, what we call is you're consciously playing the tape. When I say you're consciously playing the tape, what we are doing is you are sitting and analyzing, okay, from 8 to 2 p.m., from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., what activities am I going to pick? Am I going to do the important activities that are important for me? Am I going to do the activities that is going to improve my health? Am I going to pick the food that is going to reverse my chronic disease? So you are technically mapping out, what am I doing from 8 to 2 p.m. versus you're deliberately saying to yourself that I am going to avoid highly dopaminergic activities in the early part of the day. Okay, that's how you're using the prefrontal cortex. The other thing is using your opioid system. So when you do certain activities, it gives you pain and pleasure. For example, let's say if you are exercising, and maybe people will understand who are doing strength training activities. So let's say when you are lifting a weight, have you guys noticed the first 4 reps, maybe you have been able to lift, but the last 2 may be difficult where you're pushing yourself, right? But when you do the last 2 reps, you actually feel good. Why? Because you're using the pain and pleasure system. So you are finding that sweet spot of pain that makes an activity feel meaningful. Only when you have done that last 2 sets, you actually feel good that you have done that workout, right? If the workout was easy, you might not have enjoyed that much. So when you embrace the last few challenging reps in exercise, it's a way to increase motivation. So recognize that some pain can actually enhance the pleasure and reinforcement of an activity. Okay, so here the key is to use all this brain system collaboratively to weaken, okay, to you're using all this brain system collaboratively to weaken the nucleus accumbens control and create more intentional motivational pathways. Okay, so I will stop here and let me know if you guys have any questions. Okay. Okay, so first of all, whatever I covered today, did it make sense or it felt complicated? Okay, so So few action tips that you guys can take home when it comes to designing a behavior. Or so one is knowing the framework of behavior shaping, which I covered in the last session. So basically, knowing what are the five things for behavior shaping. The other thing is knowing what are the 5 steps to habit design, again, which I covered in the last session. And the second thing is how to influence your motivation system. How to influence your motivation system to eat healthy. How to influence your motivation system to exercise more or move more. How to influence your motivation system to do things that are meaningful to you. That's what we covered in today's class. And how do we control that motivation system? Because again, the motivation system is actually controlling us. But for us to control the motivation system is for us to know what are the things or what are the inputs to that motivation system. How can I strengthen my prefrontal cortex? How can I strengthen my deep limbic system? How can I strengthen my temporal lobes? How can I strengthen my value assessment? How can I strengthen my hippocampus by adding variety? How can I strengthen my amygdala by processing my negative emotions? Right? Okay. So I will stop here. And if you guys have no further questions, then
I do have a couple
sure.
questions. Is that
Yes,
okay?
Linda?
Yes, hi. I really enjoyed the talk. I'm learning a lot. Trying to catch up with all the names and everything, especially the Olympic system. I guess that's sort of the emotional center. So I would like to learn more about that. But two questions specifically. One you had on the slide says, "Don't argue with someone who's stuck." The other one is, you mentioned in the morning how to gently use your dopamine. I think that really makes a lot of sense to me. It sounds interesting. How do you help someone who's waking up already thinking, "Oh my God, I didn't do anything yesterday," all those stuff already come back to you the moment, and then have no motivation to get up?
Yes, that is a perfect
So
example.
yes, in a
Mhm.
sense. So the first question is, you don't argue with someone who's stuck, meaning has their certain opinion. Then when you explain to them what are the right thing to do, it's not like they don't know, I guess, right? It is, how do you show, I don't know, empathy and sympathy and love and all of that, support and encouragement.
Yeah. So
Um,
there are 2 parts to your question. And like I'll stop you here. So that is, let me address like what you have said so far. So so basically you were asking 2 questions. So one is like not to argue with the person, not to be argumentative. So that was one part of the question. The other part of the question, like if you're waking up feeling that already you're a lost case, there is so much I didn't accomplish, like whatever was on my to-do list yesterday, and like so you are waking up in the morning with that heavy mind thinking that there is so much to do and there is so much to accomplish and I haven't accomplished anything. So that is an example of negative emotions where you're not feeling good about yourself, right? So here what is happening is negative emotions are happening. When the negative emotion is happening, what is the tendency of your brain? Your tendency of the brain is to go for dopaminergic activities. So when you wake up not feeling good, you are like, okay, let me make myself feel good. So it could be just picking up the phone and like you are like, let me distract myself because I know like I don't want to wake up with this heavy mind. And or it could be let me like enjoy, let's say if you enjoy something, drinking something, or to eat something, that is what you will go for. Like you will mostly, your brain will tend to go for activities that will actually give you pleasure so that you can numb this negative feelings, because you don't want to carry those feelings for the rest of the day. So technically that's what is happening. So here, instead of we been feeling negative, so now how can I enhance, how can I process my negative emotion? So if, let's say if you're getting up in that mode, you can do couple things. So one is you can just go out for a walk. When you're going out for a walk, that tape is still playing in your mind, but what you would notice is after that 1 hour of a walk, you have calmed down a little bit. Even though that negative emotion tape was playing, what you notice is it has been processed. Even though you didn't do anything, but like you were just walking, those negative emotions have settled, and you notice that, okay, then you're thinking about like what is the next set of actions that I need to do for the day. That is one example. The other thing is, let's say you wake up and consciously say to yourself, let me meditate. Let's say if you have a practice of meditation, what you would notice is after that practice of meditation, you actually feel a little bit more energetic, or you are able to have that awareness. You are able to see that, okay, it is not me that I am lazy or I am incapable. But you are observing those thoughts, you're observing those feelings. So by that meditation practice, it is actually allowing you to just observe how your brain is thinking, how your brain is active. So when you create that distance, it actually gives you the choice. What is that I can do about this feeling, or what are the things that I can do? So few things, and there is a reason why people include this in the morning routine. So let's say whenever you journal those negative emotions, or whenever you do meditation, or what you would notice is you actually gain little bit more energy. You feel actually good um, to go about your day. So that's how you're using your other parts of your brain. That's how you're using your prefrontal cortex, and you're using variety in the mix. Let's say as soon as you get up, you have a habit of doing particular activity, but instead that day you just chose to go for a walk out of the blue. So that is something, a novel activity which you usually don't do every morning. So here you have done a couple things. You have added novelty to the mix. You have used your prefrontal cortex. You have processed your negative emotions. So in that way, then there won't be an urge to do dopaminergic activity. So let me stop here. I just want to make sure. So did this answer your question? The second part of the question?
Yeah, I think it's all these automatic thoughts and behavior is really more of uh habits and choices,
Mhm.
series of choices with or without our awareness, we made that choice. I'm just going to be like this, without using my executive function, right? Because a lot of young people tend to be just like that.
Yes.
And with the social media,
Oh my God.
this
I know
age, yeah, the young
we are
people, it's
living
very
in a
hard.
digital world, and that's why we are seeing so much depression in the
Mm.
youth, in our children, in our kids, so much depression, so much negative emotions, because they don't know how to process their emotions. Because what is happening is the dopamine is being depleted, and then they don't feel like doing anything. Have you noticed they don't have any interest in work? They don't have motivation to even lift their arm. They just, I mean, lie down on the bed because the dopamine has been exhausted.
Mm. Mm.
Because being on the phone is highly dopaminergic activity. So you have to wait for the next day again to get your replenishment of dopamine. You feel like wasted for the entire rest of the day. So whenever you are on the phone or social media, that's how depleted you feel, because you have engaged in dopaminergic activity and have depleted all the dopamine. And now coming to your first part of the question, argumentative. I know, like you were like, how do I explain? And especially like when it is my teenager or kid. And so you know that they mean well, but at the same time, recognizing that the activities that they are doing is setting them up in this manner. So one is having that recognition, because the teen may not have that recognition. With that recognition, maybe you can help them. And again, here, let's say a brain is doing something, and that's why I was giving you an example of anterior cingulate gyrus. It acts like a brake. It tries to shift. So let's say if you're just going this way, the anterior cingulate gyrus is trying to shift. So maybe you can do certain things that would enhance their anterior cingulate gyrus. So it could be, so you like again, like it could be playing games with them, or giving good nourished food, like giving them good breakfast, or because if you tell, go get your breakfast, or how likely, but instead if you just serve that in the plate and give it to them, they will eat it. Because again, that's less of a motivation to act, right? So maybe indirectly helping them by giving them good food, by taking them to walks, and when you do that, and let me give you an example. Like when our son was a teenager, obviously, like they wanted to be on the phone or their iPad. We used to take away those phones and iPad and tell them, until you do this set of activity, you're not getting your phone or you're not getting your iPad. So like you're trying to control indirectly. Or and I used a very, like I just literally twisted my son's arm, in the sense that I wanted him to have the skills of cooking and doing his daily activities before he went to the university. So I used to tell him, you're not getting your phone until like you cook the oatmeal in the morning, or until you learn how to do a certain meditation practice, or until you learn this. And since they wanted their phone so badly, they would do that. So indirectly, you are trading less dopaminergic activities for high dopaminergic activity. You're taking away that high dopaminergic activity and telling them that do this, then you can get back to this high dopaminergic activity. And since they want to get to this high dopaminergic activities, because the motivation is there to get to this high dopaminergic activities, they will do the less dopamine, even though they're not fond of doing, but they will do it to get to this high dopaminergic activity. Yeah.
Negotiation. All the time, right? That we
Yes.
negotiate with ourselves. Okay, I can eat a
Yes.
little bit more simple today and then less tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those wonderful questions. I mean, this helps the whole class. Thank you so much. Yeah. So any other questions before we wrap up? Yes, Rochelle?
Do any foods give you dopamine?
Yes. One of the example I provided was green tea. And the other thing is serotonin is also a feel-good hormone. So when you eat fresh fruits and vegetables, studies have shown that when you have 9 servings of fruits and vegetables, it increases your serotonin levels. So you might be thinking that, yes, like everybody might be doing, but it is so surprising. Like people do not even meet the daily requirement of 3 to 5 servings of fruits per day or 3 to 5 servings of vegetables per day. So that's the minimum daily requirement. But when you notice yourself having 5 servings of fruits and 5 servings of veggies, you will be amazed at how happy you are, because that increases your serotonin levels, and in a way it also influences your dopamine levels. Yeah. Okay, so we will wrap this up. So thank you so much. And let's say, even if you have questions, you can definitely like message in the PBNSG or bring it to the next class, and we can address it there. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.